Bismillah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So this is another academic related video, and this is related to the subject statics that I teach. Now recently we have had our midterm exam, and in one of the class session after the midterm exam, one student actually gave this feedback. So I read, "Sir, if you don't mind, can I get exercises and question like our midterm? As I found that the tutorial and the midterm we just had are quite different. The midterm question seems to be a bit difficult than the tutorial we had for each topic. It is expected that the final question will be similar to our midterm question. So we do need more practices on advanced and open-minded question. Thank you, sir." Right, so there's a lot to unpack there, but I will just focus for this particular video on the perception that the question that they have covered in the class or tutorial is very much different than the one that they have had for their midterm, right? So I'm interested to know whether many students think similarly or how, right? So after that, after receive this comment, I made a survey, and we have the result of the survey here. Unfortunately, not everyone responded, but at least we have 57 responses. That is roughly 1/3 of the full number of students, right? So what we will be doing is just to focus, because in this survey as well, they can give subjective feedback, right? So but in this video we'll just focus on the response, whether the student think it is similar, not that similar, very different, or how, right? So let's go to the questions. So here the question asked in general, right? How similar or different was the question in the midterm compared to the question you have covered in the class and tutorial? Now, so here you can see the majority is some questions are very different, meaning that at least some are very different, while 44% responded some questions are some questions are a bit different, right? So more people say some questions are very different. So no one says, okay, no, actually one student says it is mostly quite familiar or quite similar to what they have covered, right? So at least none says all questions are very different, meaning at least some questions are similar to what they have done, but some are very different. Okay, to the second question. How similar or different was the question in the midterm compared to the question you have seen in the textbook? Of course, the difference between this question and the previous one is that one is what they have covered in the class and tutorial session. But this is for those who have seen in the book, because there are a lot more questions in the books that is not enough time to be covered in the class and tutorial. So I just want to know what the perception of the students as well. So you can see the majority is this one, 33.3%. Some questions are a bit different, followed by 28%. Some questions are very different. These are the two options that is the majority from the previous question, right? So what are the rest? So it is a bit different, or somewhat different than what they have covered, meaning that at least the student acknowledge the question in the books are much more, etc. But there are 22.8% says I have not opened or seen the textbook. Okay, so that does pose certain, because if the question is taken exactly from the textbook, where the lecturer will assume that most students will be familiar with it anyway, but actually almost quarter of the class never have the textbook or have seen or opened the textbook, right? What is interesting is this, 6%, which is more than the previous question, says it's mostly quite similar, meaning that there are students that think that even though not as many students think that what they have covered in the class and tutorial is similar, but in the textbook at least a bit more, right? But I don't understand this, because when the three students actually respond, all questions are very different than the book. But previously, when we compare about what they have covered, not as many says all questions are very different. So that is interesting, right? Anyway, moving on. So this is about question 1. So before we go straight into question 1, I think I'll just show for a short while the diagram for each question, and then we can look at what the student have to say about it. So basically, this is on the left here is the diagram for the first question, right? So from my perspective, I assume most students, especially those who have seen the textbook, will notice this straight away, because actually this question is taken straight away. This portion is taken straight away from the book. The only difference is that some other question diagram is plugged in to combine the diagram, hence it becomes like the left, right? But it is actually question that does not require us to worry about the beam below, right? So it's exactly the same in the book. So the students have responded, so many have seen. So almost 60% says this seems similar or familiar to the question that they have seen before, and it was quite easy, right? So that's the option there, right? The question is similar and it is quite easy. So 60% says it is easy, right? 25% says it is similar, I have seen this before, but it is difficult. I'm not sure why, but some students says that. 10% roughly says it is very different compared to the question that they have seen, but it's still very easy. While 3.5% or 2 students says it is very different and it is difficult. Okay, it worries me if someone feels that this question is difficult. It is solvable if students have enough time, right? So in this case, I think the student is complaining about the time. Okay, never mind. So we'll move on to the next question for question number 2. So before we go to this pie chart, we'll just take a look at question number 2. So question number 2 is as such, it's quite straightforward. In terms of the diagram, you have the blocks there, you have the cable attached to the ring, and then you have to find certain parameters. So we go to the student response. So what was your opinion about the question? So in this question 2, the majority still think that it is similar to what they have seen before, and it is quite easy, while another 42% says it is quite similar, but it is a bit difficult. Interesting. So and 3 students says it is very different but easy, but another 3 says it is very different and it was difficult. 1 student says it was easy, but the time was not enough. Okay, so that is the second question. We move on to the third question. Oops. In the third question, okay, this is also something that is can be seen a lot in the textbook, right? There's a lot of similar structure such as this. So going back to the survey, so for question number 3, what was your opinion about the question? So the majority, slight majority, 47.4 says they have seen similar question and it is quite easy, while another 46% says they have also seen but it was difficult. Right, so the majority have seen this question. Only minority says it is different, need more time. Seems familiar to question I've seen before, but not really. What does that mean? Okay, never mind. So we go to question number 4. In question number 4, the diagram is as shown. So there's a pipe there and there's a lot of couples acting on it. So let's see what the student feels about this one. Now, the majority suddenly says it is very different compared to the question that they have seen, and it is difficult. That is interesting, because they have never seen this before. So I assume the majority have not opened the textbook, because this diagram, the diagram that is used, is directly from the textbook, right? So that is interesting. Of course, almost half have seen this. So around 36% says this, they found it to be similar to what they have seen, but it's difficult. Okay, so actually in total 50.9% plus 36.8% become 87.7% says it is difficult, right? This is familiar but difficult. This one is never seen it before and it is difficult. So only 7% says it is different but easy, and only 2 students that says it is familiar. That is interesting, because it is taken directly from the book, right? Okay, so this is the issue of quality of picture, right? So unfortunately something happened there, that some student complained that the quality is not really clear. Question number 5. So basically we'll show the question number 5 first, and we will see what the student have to say about this. Oh, sorry, so we are already there. Okay, in question number 5, so again the 2 big sector dominates, right? So 49% says they have seen it, something similar but difficult, and another 39% says it is different as well as difficult, right? However, there are like 12% says they have seen it and it's quite easy, right? So it is interesting, I think, to see what the students think. But from this midterm, basically question number 1, question number 2, question number 1, question number 2, question number 3 have somewhat similar trend, that many still think that it is very much doable. But when you go to question number 4 and 5 for this midterm, you see a lot more like green color, etc. So I think that is it for this video. This is just to highlight how the student perceive the question, and you can see some contrasting perception, right? When someone says it is very different than what they have covered, some student actually says, no, it's seems familiar, but still I have problem to understand, right? So I think there you go. That's basically a short going through the results before we go in more detail of each subjective opinion or comment. So yeah, until then, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.